Hey,
And
Mike.
we're live.
We're live.
Good to see you.
Good, man. How you doing today?
Oh, I'm great.
All right.
Good way to kick off the week. Frank and I started getting together on Mondays now, so it's nice. It's bright out, a beautiful day.
Yeah, it's fried out.
Ready for the day ahead
it's
of
always
us.
fried out in Arizona.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
So, who we diving into today, Frank?
Mooji.
Mooji Baba.
Yeah, Mooji. Yeah, Mike turned me on to Mooji a little bit. And I've seen it before, but Mike has really been studying Mooji since I've met him.
Yeah, so Mooji was a huge impact on, my personal growth.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I heard and was introduced to him was probably, I would say, the beginning of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And there was something about the way that he shared that spoke to me. And he was very gentle with the way that he described these concepts. And he's very funny, like naturally clever and funny the way he responds to stuff. And I remember watching these different videos with Mooji, and it was the type of thing where he has these satsangs. So he gathers, individuals together, a time to share, a time to meditate, and get together. And he takes questions during these satsang events that he holds. And it helped me better understand these concepts that Frank and I are talking about. And what I mean by that is like consciousness, who and what you really are. It helped me hearing these different individuals come up and ask these questions to Mooji, about their personal lives, about their work, business lives, and things that they're going through. And it made me realize, as I was, watching these and studying these, that we all have such similar issues that we hold in our heads and that we carry with us. But we think that they are specific and distinct to us. And that's really not the case. In fact, a lot of us are going through very similar type of experiences and experiencing the same type of self-doubt, on a number of different levels. And so to hear these different questions come up and the way that Mooji would continue to bring them back to themselves, back to their heart, back to that conscious plane, it helped me understand what this whole reality really is.
It is. And that's what he did. It brings back to the basis of everything. And the analogy I've used for years, and I'll use it here because when I was listening to him, it really struck me. When we're watching a movie, we often think we're staring at the screen, and a movie will pull you in. But we think the movie is the imprint onto the screen, but it's not. And like the question is, that's just the experience it's having. Who are we, truly? We're actually the light in the projector, not the film going across it, not the projection on the screen. But we're actually the light, but we keep trying to change the screen and even trying to change the negative film passing across the light. And notice, we're not even the light bulb. We're not the glass and the filament. We're the energy that's projected through the filament, through the glass, through the film, and then onto the projection. And what Mooji does when you come up with a problem, it doesn't matter what it is, he has you facing away from the screen, going into the film, beyond the film, going into the light bulb, beyond the light bulb, going beyond the filament to the energy that's actually being, the filament is what allowing the electricity to glow, but the filament isn't it.
Your true self.
It's true self. So it doesn't matter what your problem is, he brings you right back to the projector, to projection, the witnesser of this. And when you realize, when you distance yourself, the witnesser of the situation you're in, puts a barrier, I shouldn't say a barrier, I should say space. You put space between that. It's no longer a problem. It's just a situation that you're experiencing. And at the base of all, because all these other people we brought up, they're really great, but they're talking about how to make your life better, how to do, like how to make a better movie. He's actually telling you how the movie's made, why it's made.
Absolutely.
And don't get attached to it. Where the other people are showing us how to make a better movie. So they go hand in hand, but if you don't understand that you're the projector, the light coming through the projector, you're going to get lost in it, and it could be somewhat disturbing.
Frank, I love that you said that, because so when I started to understand these concepts, there was something inside of me saying, like, this is just surface level, I guess, is what I mean. Like, when I heard, like Dr. Joe Dispenza, I learned this from like an analytical perspective of how the mind works. And then there's guys like Tony Robbins, who get out there and talk about these same concepts and put this like, self-help spin on it. And then there's like the Rich Dad Poor Dad,
like
the Robert
Tony
Kiyosaki.
Robbins, they actually teach us how to make a better film.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Same with Robert Kiyosaki, and the Rich Dad Poor Dad. These they teach you how to live a better life in this reality and how you can change it. But that's very surface level. It's so much deeper than that. What's really going on and what this reality is, and what your role is in this creation and what you're experiencing. And Mooji helped me understand that.
Yeah.
And he helped me to see, like, everything, these details that are going on. Yes, you're actively building them in your mind. You're making an impression. You're experiencing what you're focusing on, what you're thinking on. But there's so much more to that, and you are this deep silence behind that.
Yeah.
You are the witness, and that's something that Mooji really dives into, is the witness can be witnessed.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful.
Yeah, when you come back and come to, because you can't intellectually understand this, but you can experience it.
Yep.
But he's not by any means, nor are Mike and I by any means, trying to tell you not to make a movie.
Not at all.
But if you don't understand the projector, you don't even know where to put the film. You don't know how it works, and you just, periodically you'll get it right, and then a lot of times you won't. And it's that agony that this should be more simplistic, that every human being has the innate ability. They know this, but we don't know why. And then when you go to film school, and if they don't talk about the projector, you're lost. But if they don't talk about the projector on day one, get out of that film school. Yeah. That's not the right film school.
Yep.
How does a projector work first? What is it? Okay, it's the light that shines. And then my perspective is the film I put in there. That's it. And then when I put it in, because it's constantly moving and fleeting from scene to scene to scene, and all of a sudden, even if the fulfillment of that movie goes on, I want to shift my perspective, and that's the universe giving me the idea, the concept, or the principle of change is the only constant, or expansion, however you want to look at it. But the thing that the witnesser never changes. It's always silent. It's always still. But if I don't know that, like the light inside a projector doesn't change. It's the film that we constantly put in there that's constantly moving, that's fleeting from one scene to the next, or expanding from one scene to the next, however you want to look at it. And that's kind of what Mooji teaches us.
Yep.
He brings us to that place.
What's a little background on Mooji that we can give everybody before we dive into one of our clips?
Mooji is he's born, I think it was 1954.
Jamaica.
In Jamaica, yeah.
Yep.
So, and he.
I know that he went to London, I believe it is. I know he was in the UK.
Yeah, I think UK and Portugal, I think, was his founding places where he taught a lot. But he did make his way to India. Mm-hmm. He was looking for a specific guru, but he came across
Papa G.
Papa G.
Papa G.
Papa G was his guru.
Yep.
And another cool story, I was watching a video of him. There's a lot of video content out there with him in it, which is great. I was watching it, and he made his way back to India, and I don't know how long ago it was. It didn't have a date on it, but it was somewhat recent. But Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, the guy who started Transcendental Meditation.
Yep.
So the Beatles came to his place. So I guess the state or the area it was in, I forgot what area of India it was in, they put a lot of money into it. It's a beautiful estate.
Yep.
That Maharishi Mahesh
I've heard him talk about
Yogi talked about this. And so, but then somehow the funding went south and they left. They got out of there, and Maharishi ended up coming to the United States. The Beatles made him real popular, but the Beatles were in this particular room. Well, how the universe works is Mooji was invited back.
Brought back there.
He was one of the first people to come back there to that ashram and actually have a conference. And he mentions the Beatles are probably sitting where you were sitting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
See, that's what I mean. He's so clever and just he's funny.
Yeah, and he's and he was highly he was excited about being brought back to this place that Maharishi Mahesh Yogi kind of built up.
and honor that, energy, that frequency from those individuals.
Yeah, and he was talking about like there was a family of tigers.
Yep.
Living in that place, and it's he's like,
there's a bunch of animals that would just like walk around,
so.
in this ashram, estate like you're talking about.
And so, even though we have perception onto our film, like he does, there is occurrences because everyone else is projecting out too. Like the synchronicity of the universe is how it operates. Is like telling these stories. Like he couldn't manifest that; he just witnessed it. And he's like, here I am in a place I was brought back to open up again to the world. And he did. And he graciously did. And that's the thing about when you listen to him talk, you don't have to close your eyes. Every time he talks, it is a meditation. Me and Mike, we meditate a lot. When I say a lot, we use this as a daily practice. But I also want to let people know it's not necessary. And what I mean is you start making meditation. He talks about this a lot. Yep. If you make it a chore, you're not meditating. You're just doing another thing that you think you have to do, and you're actually misunderstanding why you're making the film in the first place. It's not necessary.
And Mooji talks about that a lot. He's like, guys, we're putting the conditions on ourselves.
Yeah.
This screen, this reality is very... it's a blank canvas, and what we, what hoops we make ourselves jump through, that's just part of it.
Are we putting our peace onto it, or are we putting our nervous energy onto it?
Yeah,
and it's subtle, and then the subtlety can turn into, you can be at peace and get distracted. Next thing you know, it could be a major anxiety within seconds. So it's a subtlety, but it's about meditation. Obviously, we know. Me and Mike talk about this. The definition of meditation in Sanskrit means become familiar with. In the West, Latin and Greek, it means to contemplate. They're basically the same thing when you break them down. So the more we get used to the subtlety of our peaceful feeling and we step out of it, we'll know to go right back. So that's what meditation is. It doesn't mean you have to close your eyes. You're in work and you notice when you make a comment negatively about someone, you don't feel good. Well, now you picked up on that, so don't do it again. That's a meditative way of thinking, a meditative way of living. So meditation isn't just to be done in some dark room with peaceful music. That is a way.
I do want to also touch on that. Like a lot of us, we feel like, or we don't feel like, we have been conditioned and programmed to believe that when we make a mistake, we must feel shame for it, or we must apologize for it, or address it. And so if we, like Frank's example right there, you say something unkind to a team member at work or whatever, and it doesn't feel right, that does not mean you go and beat yourself up about it for the rest of the day and say, oh, shame on me, I should have known better, I'm not a good person. No.
Yeah, because now you're beating up on the number one team member, which is you.
Yes. So it's a letting go and knowing that, hey, no, I just need to put my energy into the right field. I need to, the sensation that I just received that I didn't like that was my body saying, hey, that's not your highest place. You're not providing value. You're not of service from that area in life. And so you connect with that and you let go of it and you move into the direction that feels good.
Yeah. And to stay on the idea of the film, of the movie making, some of the greatest films were made from what the director or the producer thought was a mistake, and then they pivot off of it. So keep that in mind. Everything you think is a mistake, you can pivot and make the greatest life out of that, A lot of times people do experience tragedy. I think Mooji experienced his sister getting shot, and I think she was paralyzed. And I think this helped or moved him into the spiritual realm. Because if I'm not mistaken, I could be mistaken, he was close into his 30s when he started down this journey, and which, for some people, it's pretty
Well, he was a street artist.
Yeah, he was a street artist.
And so, when he wasn't always, the spiritual individual.
Yeah, yeah, like me.
Yeah, well, he had to find himself, like all of us.
I'm still working on it.
And, it's, like you said, Frank, like with his sister, we all go through these very life-changing experiences.
So me and Mooji have a lot in common, and he was a street artist, and I was a bullshit artist.
Hell yeah.
That's all we have in common. I was kidding.
I like that. But Mooji, he talks about this from a level that no matter where you're at in your life, you will be able to feel the truth. And he speaks from, he's not like a very esoteric or, out there, person trying to make this sound difficult. He breaks these concepts into a very digestible and easy format to understand. And he brings you back to your true self.
Yeah.
He brings you back to that silence within yourself. And I think we should start with a clip.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's jump into something.
Yeah, go.
Stuck physically in the face and in the heart.
Yes.
Like a very strong emotional, physical point.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's me and the face too.
Yes.
I feel stuck there in the inquiry.
Yeah. I can only tell you are not. You're not stuck there. It's a feeling that you believe, and if you believe it strongly enough, you believe it into existence, and you will begin to feel it as experience. But it is not a truth. The self can never be stuck. First, it has no form to be stuck against anything. But the self cannot be stuck. It's a sensation that is felt, where there is still some amount of personal energy combined with a sense of beingness, and is that gives rise to these sort of sensations as being stuck and being blocked and so on. But in the big picture, they are not true. You are not stuck. So it would be like saying like the space is stuck in this room. You can say the air is stale, but you cannot say the space is stale. You're like the space. Mind is like the air or like the wind. It is more of a thing, but the space is not a thing. It cannot be our old is space. You see, does it grow old? Does it have moods? You see, and I would say that space itself is regarded as one of the 5 elements. So it is phenomenal in a sense, and yet it is perceived in the self, which is infinitely more subtle than even space. So yourself is like this space,
That was perfect.
That was perfect.
And that's kind of like how I was using the analogy as the light. It's kind of like space, because you can't block light. You can't stop light. You can block light, but you can't stop it. It just exists. It doesn't.
We are that space.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. And space is. That's,
And as soon as we identify with something,
yeah.
then we're no longer the space. We
Yeah.
then become that particle. We become what we focus on.
Yeah, you can't, if you put 4 walls around space, you can create, and the 4 walls happen to be symmetrically squared, right? Equal on all sides, cubed, say. You can say the space is cubed. Or like I take water, if I pour it into this cup, I could say that the water is in the shape of the cup now, where it's only in shape of the empty part of the cup, not the actual. If I pour the water out, it loses its shape.
Exactly.
And that's who we are. We don't have shape. We don't have form, but we're projecting out into the world in this like matrix world, and the solidification of, we talked about this with quantum physics, vibrating frequency actually contains the form. So if you had a holograph, it'd be like this glass, this cup. All right. Once I pour my energy into it, it takes shape of the space inside the cup, but it isn't the cup. Once I take it out, the cup's left. So the cup isn't me, but the argument or the analogy is the water would be me,
so
or
like,
you, or I.
What Frank's describing right now is a way of loosening up this like really tight grip we have on the reality that we experience. I remember, like, for me personally, I had to really like loosen up on this reality's grip that it had on me. And what I mean by that is, like, when we say words like the space, as you start to become more comfortable with these concepts, you start to see that we are not this separate being from this experience. In fact, we're very much connected to everything around us at all times. And that's what Mooji's saying when he's right there. You are not stuck. And a lot of us, at many times in points in our lives, we feel so stuck.
We're having an experience of stuck, just like the waters have an experience of having the shape of this cup.
Yes.
But once I dump it over, it's not. But the water is its only container because the mass of this cup it's filling its space.
The perspective of the mind has said, I'm stuck. And so that's what you're getting in this little mind wrestling match with, you think you're stuck.
Yeah, but you're not. And that's where a lot of like a spiritual teachers will reference to. We live in the space and the gaps of life. Yeah. In music, it's the silence that allows us to hear the note. It's the space in between each word that allows us to actually read the word. It's the space in between a tree that actually allows me to see the tree. We are who we really are at the core. Is we are the space. We're the silence. We're not the form. We're the formless, and the formless can then project the form.
We experience the space,
and we don't want to be sound esoteric. This is the most simplistic way. Everything else, like trying to how to make the film, that's the difficulty in life.
You're right about that.
Is.
The more complex we make the situation, all right, I got to do this. But we grew up in a world where we have been given to-do lists and checklists and syllabuses in school. And so we think we always need to be checking off some box in order to be growing. And that's not the case. Yeah. There are no boxes to check. In fact, this is more you realizing that you don't have any box left to accomplish or any to-do item left on your list. And in fact, it's been your mind the entire time creating this checklist and creating this never-ending series of events. And what Frank and I are talking about is not, okay, don't ever do anything, don't have a checklist, don't have a goal. No. That's not what we're saying.
Well, it's impossible not to.
That's it.
Yeah.
The experience itself in life is the experience. And what I mean by that is like the to-do list, the items, our daily events in our life and what we're doing. That is something that you learn to witness, step back from, and not let the ego or the personal I say, this is me doing these events and accomplishing. You start to flow with the experience and realize it is unfolding exactly how it needs to lead you to that next experience.
Yeah. Yeah, but then we do have control over this understanding of perspective. So when I shed my perspective, I take the camera and I angle it differently, and I change the perspective on the film that I'm putting in front of the light. That we have control over. But how it then interacts with the rest of the world, that we don't. So we're not controlling. I'm just controlling my perspective onto what I'm witnessing. That's it. And why? Because someone actually early on told me how to perceive. He told me how to perceive.
Well, that's the whole conditioning thing. We're taught how to learn. We're taught how to read information, and so
and I've done this before. Like when I was young, and even now when I go somewhere that no one ever taught me about the first time, been to a place. You're just sitting there, and for the very first moment, you're just staring into the abyss, and you're like, all right, no one ever taught me how to perceive this particular thing. And then someone comes along and it's like, oh, how do you like that? And it's like, it's like, oh, this is how I look at it. I'm like, oh, now perspective's being introduced into it,
Yep.
And but we notice, like, we are that calm state, and you could stare at something, a leaf, and until someone gives you a perspective on the leaf, you're one with the leaf. But then, eventually you're going to have a perspective on it. Now you're like, oh, man, I felt good. It's like, I need to collect leaves now. And what kind of leaves are out there? There's all these leaves out there.
And that's what we do is we make up these ideas about the experience. And we're like, oh, this is how I found this happiness, so I now must go collect and do this.
And we start to label. And there's nothing wrong with that from a distance. But that's why, like, I think we mentioned this the last podcast, or I forgot when we did, but it's like to say that's a maple leaf. It's like, well, that's what they call a maple leaf. Mm-hmm. So when I say that, it puts a space between me and the identification of leaf, because who gave it the label of a maple leaf? It was some human being did.
Yep.
The universe just put it out there and just put that. And we start labeling all these things based off stuff.
And then we start to live our life around that, you know? And that's like what this world is that we're in right now is... It's a bunch of people's perspectives from the past, and we're living around all these mind and man-made concepts.
Yeah.
And this is why we feel so out of touch, is we're kind of living by a made-up sense of rules, and because we've done it since, the 1930s.
Yeah, and so you look at time and how we value time here in the West and even throughout the world. Like, everyone values time to some degree differently. But because change is the only constant, trying to hold a perception from a year ago, hell, an hour ago, is where we get stuck. It's almost like if you had if you're trying to create a movie, something in motion, right? Energy in motion, and every frame was the same, it would look like a still shot on the screen, and that it seems like you're stuck. And you should, like, where's the next frame? Where's the next frame? Where's the next frame? Well, the same frame keeps coming and replicating itself. But throughout the replication, it actually diminishes in the value. It's just what happens in life. But you're expecting it to move or another scene to come on, and that's what's happening. But if you shift your perspective, a new frame comes in. A new frame keeps coming and coming and coming and coming. So as I continue to shift my perspective, we're doing it all day long, every day, in the moment in which we're in. But if I'm trying to hold on to that last perspective of that frame, so to speak, the movie looks like it's skipping, just like a record skipping. If I like that guitar riff. 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 All of a sudden, it's like, whoa, that guitar riff was great, but if you don't let it go on to the next interim of structure on the guitar or whatever plays into the music, you're not going to notice it. It becomes boring. It can actually become torturous, because we're meant to allow. We can't stop it. We're meant to experience things in its flow, in its movement, not to make it stagnant. Stagnation doesn't exist.
Yep.
Stillness is relative to where I'm at, but there is no 0 point of non-movement. Even there's frequency vibration. Even, dark energy or dark matter, how, dark matter makes up more, or dark energy makes up more of the universe than dark matter. They're very similar in the fact that there's something going on there. One has a little more materialistic to it, but the dark energy, it's still a frequency going on, but it's not tangible. And at the core, this is who we are. This is what's coming through us. But then we can make it into electromagnetic field to where we can feel the tangibility of it. Is tangibility a word?
Yeah.
All right.
I think so. If not, we knew what you meant.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is something that's tangible.
Yeah, I have to often check myself after these podcasts.
That's the whole fun about this is
Yeah.
Frank and I will get together. We let whatever comes out need to come out.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, there's somebody out there who's going to interpret and experience these videos from their own perspective. And,
and they ought to.
this type of, and this type of conversation helps people to explore, because there is no right or wrong.
No.
That is the mind.
Yeah, what's a right movie?
Yeah.
No.
To say that something's the right way or the wrong way, that's a very conditioned thing that we have gone through since we've been kids in school. And so we're so afraid to do anything in life, to start companies, do all this stuff, because we don't know how and we don't want to fail. And it's simply because since children, we have been taught to regurgitate information in a school. And if we did not perform and regurgitate appropriately, then we were outcasted as a poor student and made to feel that we were less than. And so we got to take these conditioned moments that we grew up with and reframe them and realize, man, all these stories about not being worthy, not being talented enough, smart enough, have enough money, all these concepts are ideas that were conditioned to us from birth, from our teachers, our friends, our family, movies, entertainment, all of that. And we need to go back to that 0 point, which is us. And that's what Mooji's getting at with, all of this different information. I do want to, so I got 2 clips from Mooji that I figured, that kind of fit in with this well. We'll start with this one real quick.
All right, let's check it out.
But when consciousness plays as a human being, it wants the recognition of being a person. I did this. I did this really well. I did this better than you. That's where the false subject comes from, actually. but it doesn't go away so easily. And I'll tell you, don't try to force its leaving. Only try to understand this, and to also not just to understand, but to verify, to prove it. You see, you are experiencing anyway. You cannot go and say, okay, today I've experienced enough, so tomorrow or yesterday I've been experiencing so much. Today I'm taking a day off from experiencing. I'm not going to experience anything. You can't stop experiencing. Experiencing is just happening. You're not the doer of experiencing. Experiencing takes place in consciousness, witnessed in consciousness. Who is this witness? You are here. Give this a chance, because I feel that we have been too deeply impregnated with this concept of being a doer. And the doer idea in us makes us largely over-responsible, not responsible, pride, arrogance, all of these things came in with it.
That was actually a great point, kind of what we were just talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we're the witnessing of the doing. But what I notice with me, when I get into these places where I'm controlling my emotions and controlling how I feel and not getting caught up in the what we call the negative type emotions, the doing becomes part of the play. Like, you want to do it. It's like I have to do it. Where I live most of my life having to do this to get somewhere, to get to the weekend, and from the weekend get to the summer vacation, and from there get to the point where I could afford to put my kid through college, and all this constant like treadmill type of living. Yeah. And I wasn't doing it for the experience. I was doing it for the future. And it was just like exhausting.
That's where we're all stuck, Frank.
Yeah.
That's where we're all at. We're chasing that future.
Yeah. It's like the oxygen isn't in your body. It's out there yet. And it's like you start gasping. I'm like, if the oxygen's not in your body, you're going to faint. And that's why you feel like you're fainting. But yet, when Mooji talks about it, it's like, no. It's like you're not the doer. You're just witnessing the doing.
I wrote down two things from that I loved. And number one, he said, when consciousness plays as a human being, that's what we are. That's what this experience is. What I call Mike, this body, this form, this is consciousness in the form of a body. And it's me putting an ego behind it, an I, a person behind it. And so I am not the human being. I am the consciousness. I am the awareness behind this experience. And so when he says that, consciousness is, plays as a human being, that best describes this role of reality that we're experiencing.
Yeah.
It allows you to step out of Mike the character, Mike the real estate agent, Mike the brother, Mike the son, all these different roles I play, and it allows me to simply experience. And this takes away the that constant chase that Frank was just describing of, all right, I got to do this, then I got to do that, and you're never actually enjoying, excuse me, or in that ever given moment. You're always one step ahead about what needs to be completed after this or what needs to be accomplished next.
Yeah.
And we're trying to bring you back to just that consciousness. The second thing he said is, you are not the doer of the experiencing. We're not, and we think we are.
Yeah.
We love to claim, and our ego loves to say, I did this. I accomplished this, That's not true. and from a science level, we've learned this, if I make a decision, and we've strapped people up to, the machinery in their brains and whatnot, we've been able to scientifically determine that when I say, all right, I made this decision, it actually occurred 7 seconds ago.
Yeah, and not only that, the reason we want to try to get as close as understanding this isn't to make everyone feel good about themselves by saying, I didn't do that. But everything that you claim you did is constantly fleeting. So if you did it, it's going to disappear, and that will be the life of you. And that's what happens. Like, you could have a filmmaker make the greatest film or a musician make the greatest song, but, give it 20, 30 years, it's no longer great. In this day and age, give it a couple of months.
Minutes.
Yeah, it's like, you know.
Our information age, man. People are
like,
bold after.
You mentioned a musician from when, like, who is that? And I'm like, exactly. Well, back in the day, everyone knew who this person was.
Yep.
So if they are attached to that song, that movie, it's over the second it's released. It's over. And so what boosted up your ego can rip it down at the same time. But if you detach from it, it doesn't matter. You're not getting pulled into the.
Well, you're no longer a person to be stuck. There's nothing for you to be stuck to.
Yeah, you go beyond the vent horizon, because the vent horizon is where all information lies, and then you just go into the black hole to see what's next. You just get pulled in. That's what's happening. Leave your luggage at. It's like when you come into a house, you leave your shoes at the door. Right? Now you're entering into the house. So the vent horizon was all the information. Yeah, you want to tell someone you made a movie 30 years ago and play it for them. It's there. It's already witnessed it, but it's not who we are now.
Well, one of the cool things that Mooji always brings people back to, and I'm sure you've heard this, listening to him, but he always will start different songs or meditations with, all right, I need everybody to clear their mind. Go ahead, leave all of your problems at the door. Leave all your problems, to the side. All your fears, all your anxieties, everything that needs to be accomplished today. Go ahead and leave that, on its own right now. You can go back after this. You can pick up all those
as
you're
leaving. Yeah,
as you're leaving, you
right
can pick those all back up. But I don't think you'll want to.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing. We're constantly retraining the mind to realize what we're holding on to, what we're saying matters, what we're defining. That can all be left aside, and it does not need to be part of this experience. And this is what creates flow, because we're all grasping at narratives all day long, and it feels like it's swallowing us. We never feel like we're accomplishing enough, and it's because what we're grasping at is a mental construct and not really a reality as we've been taught. So like this never-ending list of to-do items that you have, the important things will get done. Just move forward. Don't sit there and constantly check this list. Don't sit up there and think about what needs to be done today or tomorrow. This idea of accomplishment and doing, it's very much from a limited perspective, and you can step back and allow the experiences to begin to happen, and you're merely a witness to them. There's this next clip that we have is really cool, because he talks about how we all experience our own world. And I love this because Mooji will always say, there's billions of us here on this earth. We have this one earth that we all occupy, but there's billions of different worlds on this earth. And that's because each of us, from our own perspective, even though Frank and I are sitting in this exact same room, we are both experiencing this moment from a very different perspective, based on what needs to be done today, what happened yesterday, all of these different ideas, we can
have a complete understanding that this is a desk, we got a bookshelf behind us.
Yes.
And we could identify with it, but how Mike experienced the bookshelf and the desk is going to be different than me.
And it's going to align with whatever my mental narrative is.
That's it, yeah.
And that's what we're trying to bring your attention to, is your mental narratives are what you're experiencing.
Because when I sit behind the desk, I start to sweat. It reminds me when I was in school.
Then you wouldn't like this.
And the fact that the bookshelf's behind me, I don't have to look at a book, I feel safe.
There we go.
Let's listen to the clip before I get any more ridiculous.
Then you see, they can admit and observe that the energies of everything else is just what's happening in your head. Everything else is just, your world is in your head. The world is not an objective field that you observe, actually. The world is sort of the stuff in your head. Is what the herbs and spices of our projections. That we project that onto the basic elemental world and flavor it according to your conditioning and desire, and then assume that world is real. So that's why I say there's only one earth, but there are billions of worlds, because in each one, what I mean by world is the unique way in which you perceive things. Like we are sitting in this place. We can say this in this field of so many different things, trees and hills and sky and people and earth and everything like that. But the inner response to them might be different. Conditioning may, personal conditioning may tend to, because of its own style of the way it works, be drawn to certain kind of things, and that becomes, that's your experience today. It might be very different from someone else sitting right next to them. And so the point of that is that the world is not something that we all agree upon. Yeah. Or that tree is there, yes, this tree is there, whatever. But is the emotional content, the way that we respond to them, that shapes your take on the world. Nobody has captured the world. You only can project and imagine something over it, what we call a world. So earth and world is a different thing for me. Earth is one thing. World is more of a psychological, emotional, personal play.
All right.
Powerful.
Yeah, it was powerful.
Well, so I just want to bring this line up. The world is not something we all agree on. And I think this is really powerful because this is what the media constantly positions us to fight about. Okay, we've got the far right, the far left, all these different concepts, and we're taught to think that there's only one truth, one reality in this experience, and we're pinned against each other saying, this is right because of this reason. We stand on our moral soapbox and we preach about why this is the only way to view it this way. And both sides do this. And it's the funniest thing when this clicks for you, because you see there is no one way to experience it. And in fact, we're each experiencing this reality in our own way. And so to say that the world has to be something that we all must agree upon, that, this is how the society must work, and here's our facts, here's the science, it's foolishness, and we run in these weird circles.
Yeah, and throughout time, the people that seem to live the happiest and greatest life, again, we can only project on how we see them. They had the ability, a great ability, to perceive everything at the same time, but they did have preference. Like, in other words, me and Mike, we live in Phoenix. We're also well aware of another state, Arizona is the state, but another state called Alaska. We're aware of it, but we don't live there. So we live in a different environment as far as how much sun we get, the heat and everything else. The temperature is different. But I don't condemn and say everyone should live in Phoenix. Matter of fact, I'm trying to get people out of here.
We're getting too many damn people here.
Too many people. But when we start to try to say this is the best place to live, what happens is now I have to condemn, if we just take it into the understanding of this country. So this Arizona is the best state to live. And if I feel this way, I drive around my flag, and then I have to condemn all other 59 states. And that takes up the bulk of my life of actually enjoying Arizona as a state. But when I actually open up to all my perspectives, I'm like, okay, I'm here. I prefer here at the moment. But if I end up in Alaska ice fishing in the middle of winter or whenever, I'm okay with that. But allowing this multitude of perspectives, know that I can go back to Phoenix anytime I want if I choose to. But if you choose a perspective and say this, it eliminates any other thing coming in. And that's what it is humans were built with the innate ability to perceive at any moment what's in the world we're living in, to shift in their preferential way. But people saying you can't. You must remain. If you are going to be obligated to this, you have to maintain and sustain this perspective onto this.
This is why we're so tired as a society. This is why we are exhausted.
And that's why I now watch the news almost like I watch a sitcom, like Abbott and Costello or the Three Stooges. Like, they don't realize why they keep hitting themselves in the head. I'm like, yeah, we're witnessing it, laughing, because we could see why it's happening, but they cannot see it. They cannot see it. And if you get caught up in it, you start getting hit in the back of the head just as much as, Mo does.
Yeah, exactly. As these Stooges. But so the world is in your head. That's what Mooji's talking about here. And this is a eye-opening I remember this when I started to really understand this. It was very freeing for me because I was like, I have been living my life by these ideas, these narratives that have been provided and handed down to me by a society, by a culture, by a certain religious group, by my parents, by my friends, and I was living by these constructs that like, oh, I can't do this because I'm a male. Oh, I can't do this because I'm this. Oh, this will be perceived that way, so I got to stay away from this. And it's so exhausting because you're never being yourself, your true self. In fact, you're navigating this very mind-made world.
Yeah, and what it is what is our true self? The ability to have infinite choices. Because people are like, oh, this is who I am. I'm like, well, who you are is the witness of it. What I mean is if me and Mike went to film school and we were in different type of film schools and mine didn't allow me to do comedy and Mike's didn't allow him to do drama. Now, Mike might turn out to be a great dramatic actor or filmmaker, and I might turn out to be a great comedic actor, filmmaker. But not having the choice to do drama and Mike not having the choice to do comedic is what breaks us apart. It's not that the fact that I have the choice will then allow me to narrow the field into what I do in the moment. But if I don't have any choice, I'm scattered. I'm freaked out. I don't even see what's in front of me.
And I like to bring this up to, when like Christ speaks about unconditional love. That's all he was teaching.
And unconditional living as well. Yeah.
Yeah. He wasn't teaching us about Christianity. He wasn't teaching us Catholicism. He was teaching unconditional love. And what does the word unconditional mean? Without condition.
Yeah.
We put condition on everything. And so as we begin to let go of these conditions, we get into that vibration, that frequency of love. And that's where we're supposed to live from, which is, okay, I don't have any condition that I must fulfill or live by. And that's where Mooji's at when he's talking about, hey, this is one Earth. There's all these molecules and atoms and all the electrons and everything floating around. And then depending on the world I live in, what I'm thinking about, what I'm focusing on, that's the reality I experience on this screen.
Yeah, and if Mike is talking to me and he's explaining his world and I look at it differently, either one of us or both of us can go mad thinking there should only be one perspective onto the world. And again, as Mike mentioned earlier, why the Republicans and Democrats fight against each other.
They act like there's one truth and the other is just wrong.
And what's funny is you break it apart. Where did they come with that truth? And everyone says, like, you look at the, and it's funny because this is how you break away from it. You go into the argument that they're talking about. It's like, well, if you go back to the Democratic Party, say 40, 50 years ago, someone would idealistically say it was a lot more conservative than a conservative is today, So you're holding on to this idea, and even the idea can't remain the same.
It's honestly laughable. Like, you're laughing because it's so ridiculous when you really start to think about this in your head.
It's constantly fleeting, so let it go. It's like when you detach from the movie, you enjoy the movie. When you put when you put space in between anything, you enjoy it. But if you think you are it, the enjoyment goes out the window, and it's not what
because you're defending it.
Yeah, it's not what you're actually doing. It's because you think that's all there is, and the lack of choice, the lack of being able to see the next strip of film or the next frame, I should say, in it is what drives us mad, and that one frame then becomes the devil, if you will, or the agony in which we press upon.
Hell, whatever you want to call it. It is that negative experience.
Yeah, so like we come into this world, and once I shift and open up to all possibilities, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And all of a sudden now it's like, now I'm going into this and focus. And the cool thing, what I mean is, if I go on and to go watch a program, I'm just going to turn it on. I'm like, okay, at any moment, if I don't like it, I just turn it off. But if someone said that you have to watch this, 5-season series, and once you press play, you got to finish the whole thing. It's like, what? It's like, yeah, I hope it's good.
Yep.
And then it turns out the first episode, you're like, are you flipping kidding me? Oh my God. How many? There's 5 seasons. They're actually making a 6th season as we speak.
They're making
When's this going to end? But that's not how we live.
That's how we go through life.
Yeah, we go through life that way. But in the reality, we step back, you're laughing because we do have the option to turn it off and change it and go to something else. Simply walk away from TV, look up at the sky, whatever it is you want to do.
I do want to say, guys, this gets easier. Because I remember when these concepts were first
It
introduced.
becomes simplistic.
Yeah, like it was a heavy burden because we're very conditioned beings. And when I say we're conditioned beings is in our mind we have, through science realized what neuroplasticity, how our brain thinks and operates. And so when we have experienced stuff, it travels down a neural pathway, and it's very easy, and that's how our brain consistently tells us to experience a situation. So when we try to experience a situation in a different way, we are changing the neural pathway, and this is against what the mind, body, whatever, has done in the past, so it feels uncomfortable. But through repetition and, continued action of changing the way we're viewing stuff, it gets easier. And what you're doing on a science level is you're developing a new neural pathway. And so that's what Frank and I are talking about, is the way you're perceiving information now has been taught to you in a very different way. We have been taught to perceive and take in information on a very conditioned level since birth. Yeah. And so as we begin to open ourselves up to new possibilities, what we're doing is creating these new neural pathways and allowing ourselves to experience the same situation just from a new perspective. And so it's in these new perspectives that you find change in your life, you find growth, etc. So I know at first this feels uncomfortable, or it feels like, I still feel that way. But with continued action and practice, it gets easier and easier and easier, and this whole world opens up to you that you never knew existed.
Yeah, so essentially what Mooji is teaching us and showing us is when we go back to this place, going into the ability to make another type of film, going from drama to comedy is easy from that place. But from here, if all you know is drama and you show up to the next set and it's like, okay, it's going to be a comedy, all of a sudden your neural pathways are drama, drama, drama. When you go back to the birthplace of all this, it's easy to move in and create a whole new neural pathway. So what creates the neural pathway is the birthplace of everything. Because even scientists had to come up with an idea of what a neural pathway is. Again, they're showing you how the film, or how to go from a drama to a comedy. But if you don't step back to the birthplace of even the neural pathway, it's difficult. It's matter over matter.
That's it.
Go
and that's
back
why
to
it
that
feels
birthplace.
hard to do this sometimes.
And when you listen to Mooji, sorry, Mooji. When you listen to him, he actually, without you even knowing it, by him saying, okay, keep your thoughts over there and do this, don't think that, but you could think about it later if you don't want to. And next thing you know, you're in that space. It's almost like someone that it was just taking your attention away from something and bringing you to this brilliant place. And then when you open your eyes, kind of like someone puts you blindfold and walks you into a party, and you open it, it's like,
and this is the gift of a true
my
teacher.
Brand new house. Yeah, he does it without the blindfold. It's just his soft words, and it's like, okay. And next thing you know, all of a sudden, before he's even done talking, I'm like, oh my God, I'm there. I'm actually in the place in which he was trying to get me to go. I'm like, how's he going to do this? And he did it softly. He didn't tell me not to do this. He's just like, just put that aside. Just do this. Check. Oh, step here. Come here. Look at it. Oh. And next thing you know, like, wow.
One thing that's also cool and unique about Mooji is...
Did I sound like him just now?
Hell yeah. You brought us to that peaceful spot. And
took you right the hell out at the same time.
Mooji, he always talks about how he's like, I'm not this spiritual teacher. I'm not here providing you teachings. He calls them pointings. And this is something you'll, as you begin to research Mooji more, you'll see. He refers to everything, as a pointing, because as Frank and I will talk about, what we're doing is we're not teaching you anything. We are helping you to remember who and what you always have been.
And then to choose different perspectives onto that.
That's it. And that's what Mooji's saying here. He's like, guys, I'm pointing you back to your true self. That's the point of a guru. You know, a guru is to show you a reflection of what you truly are, not here to teach you or mold you. And this is why it's so freeing and feels so right when you begin to learn these concepts, because I remember going to like church and stuff back in the day and being told what to believe and being told this is how something is. And as we all know, you know, there's a lot of holes in these stories that we're told to believe, and it doesn't feel right. And so if something doesn't feel right, that's your body saying, this is not truth. This is why we have so many people fleeing the church. This is why we're losing so many people, nowadays to the church. They are not speaking truth. And it's
it's
you know,
and it's starting to, because then you have
of course, and I'm not trying to be negative or anything that. But I need to say that because I came from that background.
Yeah.
You know, I went to Catholic school. I was taught by priests, and there was something inside of me going, "This is not truth."
Yeah, because the reason it wasn't truth is because it was the only way.
Yeah, when I was introduced to consciousness, it all made sense. It all clicked.
Because if somebody like I know this, because this has been done to me before, and I grant it onto other people. If someone comes in and is agonizing over their viewpoint, I don't say they're wrong. I says, well, have you looked at it this way? So the word guru, from what I understand, means someone who sheds light on. But if I said you shouldn't look at it that way, now I'm creating a new religion. But I'm like, have you looked at it this way? Because if you look at it differently, your way isn't wrong. It's just you're stuck. It's like the record, ticking, ticking, ticking. All of a sudden, the music's not continuing. So you're stuck on a perspective. That's where you're feeling the wrong. It's not that your perspective is wrong. It's just that perspective came 20 years ago. And no one told you, hey, have you looked at it this way? So you don't need to leave your religion, but have you looked at it this way and this way and this way? But
I love how you said that.
All I did was go up to the needle and tap it. There's more to the song than you think. There's way more to the song. The song isn't the problem. You just got stuck in that groove. And then when I changed my perspective, as all the biologists tell us out there, and the neural pathways, the neurologists say, you actually just changed your neural pathway. But I have to understand what's going on. And I'm offering a perspective. I'm not telling people how to think. And just like if I offer someone a new perspective, like I would never look at it that way, all of a sudden their needle shifted and their song continued. And they were out of that misery, even for that moment. They didn't have to look at my perspective or my suggestion in a positive way, but it helped them get over theirs. And I'm like, wow. But that was done to me. It was done to me in so many times. It was so subtle. And I'm like, that son of a bitch. It was like a day late. It was like a year later before I realized what was done.
No, I love how you said that, because that's so true. Because to think that there's only one truth or anything like this, it's a very limited way to perceive our reality. So what's your opinion on this? Because there is a truth, and that truth is, you know, where you're coming from and what you are. But there's multiple ways to experience that truth. It's probably a good way to say it.
The truth is the sun is creating energy onto this planet to some degree. All right? The truth is the sun rises in the east and exits us every day, or sets, to say, in the west. But what state I'm in, what country I'm in, when I look at it, that's my perspective. That's my angle of the sun. And guess what? I could find a spot and every day look at the sun at the same time, which it constantly changes, because we are moving through this galaxy. We're moving through this Milky Way. We're spinning around the sun, and the sun itself is moving throughout the universe in its own starlight system and everything else. I can never look at the sun where I think it's the same point. I could put tape on the ground or put an X on it and stand there. And even if it's the same day every year, look at it, I'm looking at a different sun. So trying to not change perspective is the funniest thing. You're just wanting that sun to appear the day it was. Like, okay, it's October 5th, and last year it wasn't raining. What's going on? I'm like, it's not the same October 5th. That's the problem you're having. It isn't that.
We're never in that moment.
You're never in that moment. It's always fleeting. So allowing, you don't have to change religion, but you have to change the way you look at it every day, or else it's going to harm you. It's when the record gets stuck. And what's the harming is, if you could have the greatest song in the world, but if it gets stuck on jigin, jigin, you're going to drive yourself mad. Why? Because we're meant to absorb in the expansion of everything. We're meant to experience the perspective. And that's just it. So for yourself, be that person who hits that little needle on the thing and just offer yourself a perspective. But you don't have to buy into that perspective either. This is why some people that start out in their journey, they seek multitudes of religions. And then when they get really good at it, they realize, oh, they all have the same understanding at the basis. I can either stay here or I can continue on, or I don't need one. But either way, you don't dishonor that perspective. I honor all perspectives. But I can only perceive as multitudes of times that my experience on this earth will allow me. Right? Like there's a certain amount of food, a certain amount of experience I'm going to have. I can't have every experience. So I do the best I can to perceive the experiences that lead me down this path. But I don't condemn the experience I didn't have. So if someone's like, oh, I'm climbing Mount Everest next week, you want to come? And I'm like, no, I got something else going on. I got to paint the house. I wish I was climbing Mount Everest. Karen won't let me. She'll kill me. I'm probably safer on Mount Everest. But I don't condemn the act of Mount Everest. I'm just doing something else. And a lot of people are like, why don't you want to do it? Why don't you want to do this? It's like, well, right now I'm focused here. I can't be making a comedy and a drama at the same time. I can't be eating lunch and dinner at the same time. But maybe one day in the future I will be doing this. But right now I'm doing this. And farewell. And that's when you start to simplify the essence of it. At the end of our lifetime, in what we experience a corporeal lifetime, it's one on-running story from the beginning to the end. It's like a movie. Everything's a fractal. So if you understand these fractal, but who we truly are is the witness of the fractal. We're not in it. There's a separation from it. So you're watching the movie, and you get pulled into it. That's a good movie. That's why we clap. It's like, wow, we clap. Why? It's not the great movie. They fooled me that it was real. I thought this was real. Why do we not clap for a horrible movie? It has nothing to do with the story. It's just like the director and the actors didn't coexist or commingle too greatly. And I didn't get pulled into it. I didn't get sucked into it. Or sometimes I watch movies premature to my understanding. Like, I didn't get it. And years later, I got sucked into it. Why? Because I had a different understanding. Like, wow. But the movie was recorded. It was still the same. But I got pulled into it. Why? Because I had a different understanding. Wow. So it wasn't a movie. It was my field at the time. So there's a multitude of these things playing. So I can't even condemn it. So if I see a movie, I didn't get it. I don't say it sucks. I just don't why. I'm like, I didn't understand it. Maybe in a couple of years I'll understand it better.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a good way to look at it, because that's it. What we're experiencing, how we put the mind onto it, that's us layering the conditioning or the I like this, I don't like this.
Yeah, be kind to yourself, because do it to yourself, and do unto others. It's the golden rule. So if you don't want people condemning what you're doing, don't condemn them.
Yep.
And go to the basics. I don't know enough to condemn. I really don't. Because everything I condemned, the problem with condemning is then I have no future experience in that place. Because then I have to loathe myself. I have to hate myself. I'm like, oh shit, I would never do this. And this is where that phrase "never say never" came from, right? Because someone said, I'm never going to do this. And one day, like, here I am. Like, never say never. You tell the youngins, never say never,
No, hell yeah. I think everybody will enjoy researching Mooji a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think everybody can appreciate and find some some very great information, by listening to him. So I hope that what you heard today from Frank and I encourages you, to dive deeper into, these different spiritual figures, teachers, whatever you want to call them. There's a lot of people out there sharing this wealth of knowledge, and it just allows you to more freely change your perspective onto what you're experiencing and calling reality.
Yeah, and you find that they're all talking about the same thing, just simply differently.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's how it's all truth.
Yeah, there is a truth, but all truths are true. But the empirical truth is you set course of that. There's something in us that's just witnessing this. Don't get caught up in it. Set a little space in between. Like you said, take your shoes off at the front door.
Yeah.
Walk away from them. Know that when you leave, they'll be waiting for you.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Well, guys, if you liked what you heard this week, feel free to subscribe at the link below. You can shoot us an email at perspectiveshift2020@gmail.com, or feel free to comment below. Frank and I do read the comments, and we'll reply back to you online as well as on the next episode.
Mike actually has to tell me to read the comments. I'll
send them to you.
Yeah.
I'll say, hey, check out this one.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Peace out.
See you next week,
All right.
guys.